Today's guest speaker on Starting a Business Simplified is Janice Hoult. She is a holistic nutritionist and founder of High Vibe Weight Loss. Janice is an international leading expert in holistic wellness and women's weight loss with over 7 years experience as a transformational teacher and coach. She is eager to share her experience as an entrepreneur and how she navigated finding value in herself and creating an asset out of herself. That's so important when we're starting a business, to be able to look at ourselves as being the most important part and then generating our business out of that. We had an amazing conversation around this topic and a lot of great tips for shifting your mindset when you're starting a business and as an entrepreneur. I look forward to this episode with her, and I hope you do too. Hello, and welcome to Starting a Business Simplified, Navigating the Shift, a podcast for those of you looking to transition from a medical career to starting an online business. I will be sharing how to get started, success stories, and more. If you are looking to make the move from medicine to online, but don't know where to start, or have a business, but are looking for business tips and encouragement on your journey, this is the podcast for you. I'm Susie Rains, your host, and I look forward to helping you simplify starting a business. Hi, Janice. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Susie. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited that you're here. Before we dive into our conversation today, I know I introduced you earlier before this. Would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself for the listeners and how you got started in your business?
Of course. So, I'm a certified holistic nutritionist, life coach, and I specialize in helping women release the weight for good by balancing their hormones and the emotional overeating and raising their energetic vibration. So, it's a total holistic mind, body, spirit approach to the work that I do. And the reason why I got started in this business is because I used to work in corporate. I used to work for Pepsi and Frito Lay and all of these like food companies. And my job was to promote the overconsumption of these not so healthy foods. But at the time, I was just a regular average person, not really thinking much about the way that I was eating. I started in my 20s. And then when I got to my 30s and I was planning on having my own family, I really took a good look at how I was being, how my health was, and realized that what I was doing, my habits were not supportive of, having a healthy, pregnancy, having healthy kids and all of that. And so I went on my own health journey first. And while I was doing that, then I kind of looked at what I was doing as my career and realized, wait a minute, this is no longer in alignment. I realized that what I'm promoting and what I'm doing at my job is now the opposite of what I am doing in my life. And so there was this big disconnect. And over, many years, I went back to school, became a holistic nutritionist, and eventually was able to run my practice full time and resign from my corporate career. And I started in pregnancy and fertility nutrition because that was, again, my journey. And also because I was struggling with my own weight. And I think anybody listening who has like gone through a transition is like, okay, this is what I'm meant to do, because they've changed so deeply. And so a lot of your listeners are probably having that experience. Like they realize something's not connecting. They realize, maybe they're not in alignment with their job, or that, what they're really into and passionate about is not representative in what they do, but they need to tell the world about their experience. So as I was working with my clients, I realized that they were having the same trouble that I was having in terms of my weight. I tell them how to eat, but they're having a problem following through. And so in order for me to help them more, I went down the rabbit hole of how do we build habits? How do we sustain them? How do we stay consistent? What's going on in our brain? And then I went down the whole like neuroscience, I say rabbit hole, to really teach me how do I get my clients to comply. And as they were doing it and seeing success, I turned that on myself so that I could comply even more with how I know I want to be eating to support my weight loss, but wasn't able to do so. And then I was able to lose like the 35 pounds, the extra weight that I'd been struggling with for over 30 decades, 30 decades would make me very old, for 30 years. And I lost the weight and I kept it off. And people obviously noticed and asked me what I was doing and asked me if I could help them in that way. And so I gave it a try and I realized that I had this formula and it was working for me and it was working for so many other people that eventually I decided that I needed to do that full time. And so now I've been working specifically in weight loss for the last 3 years. And I do still have some clients in the fertility and pregnancy space as well. So that's a long story long how I got into this in the first place.
I love it. I love how much you shared because it's not long. It's your journey and it's a beautiful thing. And what I love about it, and I've shared this many, many times, is our journey of work and personal always intertwines. And I think what you said make it so clear. You were working for these corporations that were providing processed foods and high sugar foods and things like that. And when your personal life shifted, it no longer aligned. And that's such a big thing. I think we as women in general, I think we separate the two. We say, this is my career and this is my home. This is my family. And we forget that they go together. What we're doing is all one big holistic thing. And as new business owners, I think that's the hardest transition. My main listeners are coming from a medical career, and that's who they are. They are the practitioner and the clinician and doing all of those things. And then they go home and they're whoever they are at home. And so really marrying the two, I love your story because you brought yourself into it. You said, hey, what do I need? What do I need to shift? And now how can I help other people shift? And then as other people, your clients were shifting, you're like, ooh, that would be good for me too. And I can relate to that because I do business planning with my clients. And I too go back and review my business plan. And when I do that, I get clearer and I understand more and I shift here a little bit here and there. So I love that you're practicing what you're teaching and you're learning from it and you're learning from those other people that are around you because I think that's such a powerful thing. So I'm thinking with our conversation, I think it would be really good. I love to use myself as an example. And if you're comfortable using your journey as an example, as people get started, why do you feel it's so important to align their values with their new business venture?
That's a good question. I never gave much consideration to values for a really, really long time. And so obviously it came slapping me in the face. Like, clearly, my value is health. And now what I'm doing for my career is no longer in alignment with that value. And it wasn't until I started my business that I really looked into what my values are and outlining the top 5 values that relate to me and that relate to my business and which ones intertwine and which ones are separate. And that I think it's totally fine that they are. And the reason why that's so important is because our actions are always driven by our values. And so when we find ourselves habitually putting things off or really driven towards one path versus the other, it's because there's a value behind that we find really, really important. And so when we can figure out what our values are, get really clear with what those are, it makes everything else easier. And if we have something that we realize is not as high of a value as we want it to be. So for me, wealth was never much of a value, right? It's something that a lot of us look at like, oh, we shouldn't need to be wealthy. We've been conditioned to believe that, the rich are evil and greedy and all of that stuff. So for me, I never valued wealth until now that I'm older and I realize like wealth is actually very important for me to support all the other values that I have. When you have wealth, when you have money, it becomes easier for me to give back to others, becomes easier for me to invest in my own health, to, have experiences with my family. It's not that it's necessarily required, but it makes everything easier. So going through and really figuring out what your values are and maybe what values you want to start to instill is really important because that's going to drive your actions. And it's one thing, like I say to my clients, it's one thing to know how to eat. It's another thing to actually be able to follow through with it. It's one thing to know what you need to be doing in your business. It's another thing to actually do those things. And so when you're really clear on what your values are, it really drives those actions a lot smoother and more naturally than that hustle and that force if we're trying to do something that we don't necessarily see the value in.
That's so good. I can relate to so much of what you just said. The one about money is huge because I'm like you. I can totally appreciate that. I'm like, it's okay. I'm fine where I'm at. I don't need more. What's the big deal? And when you shift that value, it shifts all the energy behind it. And that's such a thing that I don't think we think about. We're not really, because we're conditioned. Again, we have a lot going on in our subconscious mind that's things that were instilled in us either as children or throughout our lifetime of experience. that we don't realize. And it may take a little bit of work to actually say, okay, I'm going to shift that thinking. And I just recently started doing this where I'm writing down what my current thought is,
Mm,
and then I'm writing down what I want it to be. So if my current
yes.
thought is not lining up with my values, then I can change it and actually make it be what I want it to be. With the thought, I'm going to stay with the money subject because I know that's a really big trigger point. A lot of people, as they're leaving a career, starting a business, that's the big thing that stands out is how do I replace my income, or how do I replace my income and then increase it? And that can be a big stressor and put a lot of pressure on somebody. And I'm curious from your perspective, how would you recommend that you could turn some of that stress and the pressure of you have to succeed and you have to earn and you have to get all this money into inspiration?
Well, I liked how you were talking about you listing out what your subconscious thoughts are versus your conscious thoughts. So when you can even do that when it comes to feeling stress or feeling pressure and really list out what are all the thoughts that I have around doing this work, around stress, around pressure, and reframing that in your mind. So I've been doing this a lot lately with myself is how do I look at the things that I am required to do in my business? What do I currently think and feel about those things? And if I need to continue doing those, is there a way that I can change in my brain how I look at that responsibility? From I have to do this podcast, I have to do this email, I have to make this sales call, to I get to. And why is it that it's great that I get to? Because I get to serve my people, because I get to share my message, because I get to meet other guests that can come on the podcast. Or with the sales calls, because I'm offering to help somebody. Like if you are starting your own business, it's because you have this general desire to want to help people in a certain way. So if you look at that sales call or that thing that it is that you're putting off doing, really what you're doing is you're putting off your ability to help those people. So really starting with how are you viewing and thinking about the work that you need to do as stressful, as pressure, as whatever. And you can even just with your thoughts, creating those conscious thoughts to make it inspirational. So if the thought is going to be something that feels heavy, feels like pressure, feels like stress, well, I mean, your actions are going to be from that place as well, right? And the energy you put behind it is going to support that emotion, those feelings. Emotion is energy in motion, right? But if your desire is to feel inspiration, which may not be the feeling you want to have all the time. Maybe there's certainty, maybe there's fun, maybe there's other emotions you want to have related to your business. What are the thoughts that you can think that will give you those emotions? So actually working a little bit backwards from what you were saying, it works in lots of different ways. If you want to start from the emotion, how do you want to feel in your business? If that's inspired, what are the thoughts that you can think that lead to you feeling inspired?
I love that. Now I have another way that I love having multiple tools because I'm a person that if I start doing the same thing over and over again, it gets kind of boring. Like, and being engaged with your thoughts. What I've found, I've been doing this for about 2 weeks now, and I'm very consistent. I have a piece of paper next to me. When I have a thought, I jot it down so that it's right there. And because I'm being interactive with my thoughts, I've noticed that it's easier than saying, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to think of all my thought. Like I do it in the moment. So it helps to like keep that inspiration going to
Mm,
continue to do it. So I'm going to have to think about my feelings because what I love about that is I may have a feeling without a thought at first.
yes. And
The
you can say, what
feeling,
is the thought that contributed to that feeling? Or how do I want to feel today? How do I want to feel about doing this task? And then from there, okay, what are the thoughts I need to have in order to feel those feelings? Because as I think you're aware, which is why you're doing this work, is because your thoughts create your emotions, create your actions. You can start anywhere on those three levels. In fact, I have this a formula, I call it STEER, the Steer Your Life formula, STEAR. So you have a situation, right, which could be podcasting. And then you have a thought about it, which could be like subconscious, like, oh, it's going to take a lot of time. And what emotion comes up for you when you think about that? You feel rushed, you feel stressed, you feel something. And when you feel that, what result does that give you? Right? You may be scripting it out from a place of low energy, not providing a good, offering for your clients because you're just trying to get it done as opposed to how do you really want to feel about it, right? And so if that's the action that you take, the result is it's probably not going to be the best quality podcast that you could be creating. So by looking at that, and I call that like an unconscious formula, how do you want to steer that situation, your life, in a different way? And you can start from any one of those, right? You can start from the thought, you can start from the emotion, you can start from the action that you want, you can start from the result that you want to experience. You want to have like the best podcast you've ever recorded. What actions do you need to take in order to support that? What emotion do you need to feel in order to support that? What thought will support all of those things? And working backwards from that formula. It's amazing.
I love that. I wrote it down. I'm going to put it in the show
Right.
notes for you guys listening, because that is so big. And I want to emphasize the fact that what you just said is not a time consuming thing, because a lot of people, when you're like, oh, do this or try this will help. It really doesn't take that much time to do what you just said. And if you're already, say you're in an emotion of dread, because you're like, oh, I don't want to do my bookkeeping. I really don't want to do that. It's challenging for me, or I struggle with it, or whatever. It takes less than a minute probably to run through that exercise in your head to get you into the frame of mind where when you open up your bookkeeping, you now feel the way that you said you wanted to feel, and you're thinking the way that you want to think. And now you're physically doing the action that you know you need to do. And I think that's something that holds back a lot of new business owners. I'm going to put myself in this category, not another thing to do. Like, this is actually going to free up your time, because if you're inspired and you're happy and you're enjoying what you're doing, things go, like you said earlier, when you're aligned and your values are, it's easier.
It just
There's
happens
not
naturally. You're like, of course I do a really great job with this sales call because I'm feeling so inspired and so great. But if you're in dread, I like this analogy. Anything that you put off doing, you experience twice, right? Because you experience the feeling of dread, and then you end up having to do the thing anyway, and then you dread doing the thing. So it's like it's a double whammy, as opposed to if you could just recognize, oh, I'm feeling dread. How can I change this around? And then, you can move on doing your task in a very different energy, which gives you a very different result.
I love that. Doing that I'm going to remember that, because that's anytime I have a negative thought or a feeling, emotion that is resistance, I'm like, I don't want to feel this.
I'd rather just get it done. Like, how many times I said this earlier today, how many times do we think about having to clean the house? And by the time we get around to it and we clean the house, it's like, well, we spent all that time and effort dreading it. And then while we were doing it, it probably took even less time to do it and energy than it did for us to like hate the idea and procrastinate and put it off.
Yeah, that's true. Because thinking about it, you're living it in that moment that you're like, oh, I got to clean the house. And your mind is going through all the things that you're going to do to clean your house. So you're really actually doing it. And then you have to do it.
Because the brain doesn't know the difference between thinking about doing it and doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Which is interesting when you get into the brain science of it all.
Yes. Yes. And that's fascinating to me. I love that. And the energy shift, because you feel it. You actually, and going through this steer exercise, for those listening, try it on something simple. You will feel the shift, because I've had experience with that. That's something that I'm personally working on and having more focus on, like writing down my thoughts and like being more aware and shifting things. And when I do that, I feel the energy shift. You are in the health and wellness field. I would love to just pivot our conversation a little bit around starting a business and all of the health stuff that may come with it. Now, it may be that, and for me, it was this way. I was not healthy when I started my business, and I was working towards getting healthy. And I think that's similar to where you were at. I was in a place where I'm like, I know I need to be healthy, and now I'm starting this business. And to me, there was a clash there. I was kind of like, but I'm stressed. I'm going to go eat. Oh, I'm tired. I'm going to go sit and watch TV and eat. I'm anxious. I'm going to eat. Like,
I don't want to do the social media post, so I'm going to go make myself a snack. I have no idea what that's about.
I know. Yeah. It's like, yeah, it didn't matter what else I was doing. I was eating. I was always eating. And so it was a struggle, because I had the external, what we talked about earlier, pressure and stress starting a business. And now I'm trying to appease that stress and pressure with something unhealthy. Why is it so important for us to really look at ourselves and say, how can I be healthy in this type of environment where we're shifting and we're trying to start a new business?
I think this is a really interesting question, especially for your audience who's already in healthcare. So they probably already know the importance of their own health, but they're so used to being in that wheel of, but I have to go, go, go. I have to do. I have to get stuff done. And then the light at the end of the tunnel is, and then eventually I will have time and space and availability to take care of myself. And deep down, we know that doesn't work, right? It's because you're trying to run all the errands in your car where the gas tank is on empty. And what's going to happen is you're going to end up running out of gas and stuck on the side of the road. Now you can't do anything that you wanted to do because you just didn't take the time as you were out running your errands to stop and fuel up. So the reason why this is so important is because as a business owner, you don't have other people to rely on, right? You can't call in sick. You can't, ask for a backup. You can't ask for help. You are your number one asset in your business. So you have to make sure that you are fully able to show up for yourself. And then everything else that you do in your business and in your life will be affected by that like a domino. So if you're taking care of yourself, then you're able to show up for your business with better energy, with more clarity, with more brain space, better memory, and all of those things. But if you're not and you're burning the candle at both ends and you're just trying to get it done and go, 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 first of all of that low energy that you don't have, that you're struggling and hustling to find to put into your work is going to show up in all of the work that you do. You're going to half-ass it, or it's going to come off graspy, or, it just energetically does, right? You can tell when someone is, sending you an email and it feels great, or someone sending you an email and it feels like force or hustle or push, or just generally like the low vibe energy. And if you end up burning out, who is there? Who's got your back? Nobody, right? So you have to take care of yourself. And I will say that what you do for yourself compounds also in your business and in all of your life, really. But let's say you don't have a good night's sleep, right? Maybe you stayed up super late and you were on your screen and you didn't eat very well and you had a very bad night's sleep. You're going to wake up the next morning. You're going to feel groggy. You're going to feel tired. You're going to feel resentful. You're going to have to show up for your business anyway, but you're going to be coming from that energy. So everything you're going to do is going to be weighted down with all of that pressure. And it's the same way, like that's physical, but also mental. If you're not taking care of your mental health, and again, all the things we were talking about, how you are thinking, how are you feeling? Are you doing this because you love it? Are you doing it because you have to? Taking care of that mental space and those thoughts and those feelings show up in everything that you do, and eventually will wear you down or build you up, depending on which side of the scale that you are teetering on. And yeah, everything that it compounds. So if you're like, oh, I'll fix it later, except for everything you do from now until later is not just going to have that lower energy or result that you're experiencing today, but then it's going to compound for tomorrow. It'll be a little bit lower, and the next day a little bit lower, and the next day a little bit lower. And so ever you continue to scale, right? If you're scaling your business or making more money or able to whatever it is in your business, you're going to continue to scale the problems, or you're going to continue to scale those healthy habits and actions that you're taking. It's going to continue to compound up as opposed to compound and bring you down.
I love that. I love that you bring in the energy piece, because we think, and I'm going to use social media as an example. We think if we just do the task, I'm just going to throw a post out there so that I'm there. The energy is felt on the other end. If people see that, they're not necessarily, like you said with the email, if you did one high energy, high vibe post, you're going to get way more people receiving it than if you did 100 of the ones that you're just throwing them out there because you have to do it.
Mm-hmm. And so that comes into like, what's the energy that you're putting behind creating that post? Are you doing it because I have to, or are you doing it because, wait, I signed up for this as a business owner because I want to help people, and this is one way that I can help them? And whether that's help them by giving them like a tip or a strategy or something, or helping them to encourage to take the next right step for them, or buying your thing because you honestly believe it's the right thing. So just keeping in mind, that is everything. For me, that changed everything. When I consciously decide that what I am doing is in service of the person who's ultimately going to receive it, I show up differently in my business. And then doing the work itself doesn't drain me, it fuels me. So when I'm done doing the job, it's not even like, phew, thank God that's done, right? Check that off the list. It's like, I just created something that's going to help somebody, and that makes me feel good, and that gives me energy instead of taking that energy away.
That's such a good point because as business owners, we are doing most of us are doing everything ourselves. And so we have a mental, physical energy drain to a point already, just physiologically, we're just tired. And if
Mhm.
you add on top of that, if you're already coming from a low energy area, it's going to go down and the people are going to notice it on the other side and you're not going to be as successful. And then you're going to be in this cycle, the cycle of nobody's buying my stuff. Nobody's posting, nobody's commenting on my butt, but we're
You're
creating that.
Yes, you're creating that. That steer formula, that steer your life formula, it's because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. What you think always ends up as your result. If you think, oh, I have to do this just so it's done, the result is, well, it's done, but does it give you any impact that you wanted to create in the first place? Right? You go through that steer formula and always every time what you think is what you create, never wrong. Fascinating. And so that's how it can steer your life because you could look at what you're creating and then decide to create something different.
Yeah, I love that example that you just gave because you just said, okay, if you go with it saying, I have to do this to get it done, your result
Mhm.
is you got it done.
Yeah,
And that's
that's it.
it.
That's it.
And it stops there. If you go
Yeah.
to with, I'm doing this to help someone, I want to encourage, this post is to give encouragement to someone out there that might be struggling, then the result is going to be that person who read it is going to be encouraged,
Yeah, the
which is
thing
really
great
different.
is going to be life-changing or impactful for that person.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that. That is so amazing. We're coming up on our time. Before we go, I would love for you to share, based on our conversation, what are some things that you think would be helpful for somebody listening who's like, wow, you're talking to me, an action step that they could take and start implementing. I know we have the steer and I'm going to start doing that. I wrote it down and going to be doing that myself. What are
Amazing.
some other things that you could think of that people could be doing to kind of help them shift?
So, as a new business owner, what is something that you could be doing right now that will shift? I think we talked a lot about thinking about what you're thinking about as you're doing your work and being able to shift that into a better feeling thought, something that will be more supportive of the outcome you want to create, as opposed to just accidentally creating an outcome that you didn't necessarily mean to. Being really mindful in managing your thoughts and your emotions is so important in your business. One thing, and I'll give you an example of this. One thing that I've started implementing at the beginning of this year was I time block on my calendar all the tasks that I'm going to do for the entire week at the beginning of the week. And the reason why this is so impactful is not just so that I can see everything that I need to do and get done, but when it comes time to doing the thing, if I don't want to, why don't I want to? What is going on in my brain? What are my thoughts around having to do this task that I'm wanting to procrastinate or put off or rush through, or what's going on with my thoughts about doing that thing? And it allows me to really clean my brain of the thoughts that are not serving me and replace it with things that are. It's not just so that I check the box like we talked about, right? And I get the task done. It's like realizing what comes up for me when I have that on my list of things to do. And the more I practice doing that and getting the task done anyway is so valuable because I get to deal with the stuff that comes up. I get to get that thing done. It's usually a higher quality item of things that end up doing, and I'm building that habit of consistency of constantly showing up for myself and my business, regardless of the thoughts that I have. And that's creating stronger neural pathways in my mind to just get stuff done. Feel the fear, do it anyway. Feel the resistance, do it anyway. And the more I practice that, the more that becomes my habit.
I that
That was a big one.
That's a huge tip. Anybody listening, if you are a person who procrastinates, that word, that's that's a good starting point because like, why am I not wanting to do this? And I have
Mhm.
3 things on my list that I've rescheduled that now I'm going to go back and look at. But it's true. What you said is so valuable in the fact that, okay, you're a new business owner and you have a lot of things on your plate. There's a lot of things you don't know and you have to learn. So if you have something on your to-do list and you're like, okay, I don't want to do that because, and you start going
Mm.
through that process, then you're going to learn faster because it's like, oh, am I putting that off because I don't know how to do it? Well, let me go figure it out. Let me go watch a YouTube video or
Right.
let me go ask somebody or whatever you need to do in order to learn that task. And then the next time you have to do it, you're like, oh, well, now I know how to do it. So it's not so hard.
Yeah. Or maybe it's deeper than that. Maybe I'm feeling self-conscious and I don't want to put myself out there. Maybe it's a lot easier to work on the font on my website than it is to make that live stream video that offers to help people. So what is it that you're avoiding and why? And just being really clear on the things that are actually important that move the needle for your business and not just make you feel comfortable and in that feeling of I'm being productive, I'm doing something, but it's not something. I can tell you how many years I spent in my business wasted because I was hiding behind my computer, hiding behind doing the thing that I know I needed to do in order to get sales because I needed to learn this one more skill. I needed to get one more certification. I wanted to, just edit my website just a little bit more instead of doing the thing that I actually need to do, which is make money so that I can sustain my business. So knowing what's going on in your thoughts that's preventing you from doing the thing that you know you need to do is huge. It's huge to be able to recognize that, clear it, or be able to show up anyway, even though the thought is there. Because I'm more than 7 years into my business and I still have self-doubt and I still have times that I want to hold myself back from doing something that feels big or scary or whatnot. But I'm starting to develop that muscle even more to just do it anyway and deal with those emotions and those thoughts and those feelings.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that even after 7 years, you still, because guess what? I bet 10 years from now, you and I as business owner, we're still going to have those feelings. We're still going to have those. Business is always evolving and we're always growing and changing and developing. And for those listeners out there that are thinking, I'll get over these feelings once I'm not a new business owner anymore.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The reality is,
Still happens. I remember I used to have this list of things. Okay, I have to do this every day and this once a week and this once a month before I started time blocking. And then it would just be like, oh, I just didn't get to it. Oh, I didn't have time. Oh, this other thing was more important. But once I started doing that time blocking and really calling myself out on what was preventing me from actually following through and doing the thing, and sometimes it might have been that I didn't have enough time set out in my brain, but most of the time it was just because I decided to prioritize something that was a lot safer and more comfortable than doing the thing that I wanted to avoid doing.
okay. So for those listeners out there that are totally agreeing with all of what we're saying, just do. Think about the why and really contemplate what's holding you back. So whatever it is that you're holding, and this could be just even starting your business. You're like, I want to start a business. I have a great idea. And you're just sitting and sitting and sitting and it keeps going, oh, I'll do that next week, next month, next year. Yeah, just take a minute and write down what it is that's holding you back and really think about that. Cause I think that this is a huge step to just move forward. But then you're going to be doing this same step over and over and over with everything that you do when you start your business.
Yeah,
That's
and you
huge.
change and you evolve as your business change and evolves. It is the biggest, wildest journey that you'll ever be on if you're consciously like a part of it and being aware of it. Things do change. And as they change, you grow. And as you push yourself to another level and you get to another level, you have to continue to push and grow and grow. And it's actually, yeah, super eye opening, life changing, transformation. Like it's all of the things that we tie into as business owners. We get to see ourselves evolve as well as our business and become a different version of who we already were.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Before we go, if you wouldn't mind telling the listeners how they can reach out to you if they want to connect with you.
Yeah, so I have a podcast. It's called High Vibe Weight Loss. I'm that same High Vibe Weight Loss on all of the socials and on my website, highvibeweightloss.com. If anyone is ready to release the weight for good and interested in my approach, I talked a little bit about you're welcome to jump on a free weight loss consultation call with me at highvibeweightloss.com forward.
Thank you so much, Janice. Thank you for being here. And as always, for my listeners, keep it simple. Thanks for listening to this episode of Starting a Business Simplified, Navigating the Shift. If you enjoyed this episode, then hit the subscribe or follow button on your favorite podcasting platform so you'll never miss an episode. This podcast is for you, so be sure to reach out and let me know what you thought about this episode. You can join our Facebook community, Women Medical Professionals Starting an Online Business, where we share resources and information as a community. Click on the link in the show notes to join.